Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, how are you this morning?
I am doing well. So I'm in Gainesville, Florida. I know you're in Orlando, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it looks like it's a nice day out over there in Orlando.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is beautiful, and we've got a little bit of a breeze this morning, which is really nice. So 8 o'clock in the morning here right now feels pretty nice.
I know I always love the mornings. I'm a morning person myself.
Me
So
too.
I feel a
Such a
lot calmer.
That's it. Being able to walk and I usually walk in the morning. So I walk about a little over a mile. Our neighborhood is all the way around a block, and a cul-de-sac is exactly 1 mile. So sometimes I'll do that little cul-de-sac part just a couple more times, and it's a great way to be able to start the morning.
Yeah, I see that we have a guest back there. We got your cat back there, right?
Oh yeah, you might see a couple more back there.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to do a brief introduction of you, and then we'll kick off with the interview. Does that sound good with you?
Amazing. Thank you.
So Stephanie Bowman from One Heart for Women and Children, a nonprofit that serves an average of 20,000 individuals by providing basic human needs such as high quality food and life coping skills. And feel free to correct us, Stephanie, if any of the figures are incorrect, okay?
Absolutely.
And so tell me by way of introduction, what else would you like us to know about One Heart for Women and Children? I know you founded this nonprofit. So yeah, share with us a little bit more about your mission and your service.
Absolutely. So I started One Heart for Women and Children 16 years ago, and my really the sole mission to start it was, and the thought and the heart behind it really was to be able to help other women that were in shelters with more resources, and for homeless moms and or dads that were homeless, putting their children in dumpsters for food. And so 8 years prior to starting One Heart, I was homeless, and I was homeless only 5 weeks, running from the domestic violence. I say only 5 weeks because that 5 weeks seemed like a year and a half some days, and other days it was like, okay, one more day, one more day. We made it through one more day, and in that 5 weeks, I was putting my oldest daughter, who was almost 7, in a dumpster for food. And nobody in the United States or anywhere around the world should ever have to put their child or children in dumpsters to forage for food.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. You do have a really powerful story. Seems like you've had quite some experiences, which we'll talk more about if you're comfortable.
Absolutely, and I will share that I am on my last two chapters of my book. So I am writing a life story of my journey in the last 58 years. And so I'm 58 years old. And so there is like zero that's off. That is, let's see, zero that is off topic.
Oh, wow.
What I love is that every bit of the trauma has been healed, and I think that the important part is to be able to share the experience, strength, and hope with others, because every single one of us has felt, um, every single one of us has had dreams, and we've had inspirations, and we've had these highs, and every single one of us has also had some type of trauma in our life. We've had some lows in our life, and I think when we get in and we share the experience, strength, and hope with each other, mostly through conversation, what we find is that there's so many more commonalities than there are differences between us.
Yeah, that's right. That's so wonderful that you're almost done with the book and you're going to be sharing that with the world. That's so exciting. So, next question is, so what is the thread that led you from homelessness to addiction to toxic decisions to rehabilitation to purpose awakening and then to the long road to healing, which part of it is quoting an article, and then obviously ultimately to becoming a community leader through your nonprofit, One Heart for Women and Children. So I know another article wrote that you had an amazing, loving childhood,
I
but
did.
everything changed when you turned 15. You're the victim of rape and subsequently had an abortion. So around the same time, a close friend of yours died by suicide. So what do you think has made you keep the hope, even though so much has happened, so much darkness, it seems?
My mother is what gave me so much hope. My mother had polio when she was 8 years old, and it did not stop her from anything other than using her legs. She was paralyzed from the waist down, still had feeling, and I share that because, so often in life we all have stuff that happens, and through that, my mother, I never heard her raise her voice at us or anybody. She always stayed very, very positive. And one of the things that she would say very, very often is, if we can stay neutral, then we don't have to, excuse me, we don't have to get angry. We don't have, it doesn't mean we don't feel, although we don't have to show that anger. We have ways that we can walk through it so that we don't have to act out our anger on another human being. So through the journey, until I was 15 years old, my home, wherever the four walls were that we called home, we traveled quite a bit because my dad was in the Army. My parents were married for 48 years. They stayed together until both of them had passed away. And um, the four walls of our home was always my safe place until 15 years old. When I turned 15 years old, it was just a couple weeks after, there was a trusted person that was in our home that raped me. And I found out I was pregnant pretty quickly. And then I had an abortion. And the day that I had my abortion, I didn't want to feel, I didn't want to live, I didn't want to be part of a family anymore. I felt dirty, I felt ashamed. I felt like maybe there was something that I did that caused him to rape me. And what I went next door, and when I went next door, I knew the guys and some of the girls that lived next door. I knew that they were doing some things, didn't know exactly what they were doing. And I went next door, and it was the first time that I had my first drink, my first smoking pot for the first time and smoking cigarettes for the first time. And I'll tell you that the very first drink I had, I felt like something was different. I felt like I could conquer the world. I felt like there was hope again. And that sounds really, really weird for a lot of people that, a shot of alcohol could give them hope. What that hope was a lot of false hope. And I didn't realize it at the time. Um, I continued to drink. I went to school. I ended up graduating school. My mother, all the way through it, my mother knew that something was happening with me and something was shifting. She didn't exactly know what. I was too afraid to tell my parents and my family everything that was happening. Um, Once I did tell my mom, a couple years later, once I did tell my mom, um, we talked about it. Mom said, we won't talk now that you've talked about it. We won't talk about it again. And I think that she was doing the best, absolute best that she could with what she had. Um, so when my dad died about 12 years ago, and when my father passed away, he had no idea. He had no idea some of the things that had happened in my life because my mom really kept him sheltered from it because she was afraid that if he found out some of the things that had happened in my childhood and teenage years, that he might have ended up in jail because he would have, gone and searched. So back to the question, that hope, that inspiration has really been my mother and also her mother. My grandmother was also, she was an activist just like my mother. My mother, each time I would go to my mom or my grandmother with situations in my life throughout my years, both of them would bring me right back to that place just with asking questions on, what do you think is best? They would never answer my questions when I would go to them. They would come back with another question so that I would have that answer. So really, both my mom and her mother, I think that they were life coaches without even knowing that that's what they were doing. And I believe that that's also why I became a life coach as well. Part of the hope while I was homeless, when I was homeless, I dove into the drugs even more. Um, I will say between the age of 15 and the age of 32, when I became homeless, there were periods of my life where I was abstinent from the drugs and the alcohol. And but what I found is that there was still a hole in my soul that I didn't know how to fill it up. So each time when something tragic would happen again, or something that I didn't know how to handle, I would start drinking or using drugs again, or acting out in different ways, whether it was shopping or eating or relationships. That addiction, that I fully crossed that line of addiction when I became 32 years old.
Thanks for sharing all of that. I know I can totally relate in that um, your admiration of your mother and your grandmother. As the longer I live, the more I feel like there's really nothing stronger than that maternal bond.
Absolutely. And I have two daughters. So my daughters, when I went into, so I was homeless for 5 weeks, and then somebody found us. DCF and a judge and a family member had found us where we were homeless downtown Orlando. And I went in to treat, they took me to detox and took my children to foster care. So I was in a treatment center for the next 9 months. And it was absolutely amazing because it taught me how to be the woman that I needed to be and that I wanted to be. And that was back in 1999. So that was 25 and a half years ago. So January 7th of 1999 is my clean and sober date. And my children went into foster care. And then right as soon as I graduated from treatment, the judge gave me my children back. And they're now 26 years old and 31. And I have a 4-year old granddaughter. And both of my children and I talk very often. One is a volunteer at One Heart. She lives in Texas. She's the one that has my granddaughter. And then my 26-year-old is following the right in my footsteps with One Heart. She's the director of community outreach, and one day hopes to, take my place there at One Heart. And we talk often about the legacy, um, just that living legacy, and then the legacy that my grandmother, brought down to my mom, that brought down to me, that I'm bringing down to my daughters, and that one of my daughters is bringing down to her young daughter.
That's wonderful. Wow. I know you've already shared a little bit of your mom's story, and I know your mom worked as a counselor for those with disabilities. Is there anything you want to elaborate more about her story or her work? Just so yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So back in the 80s, my mother, so she got a double master's degree and from Rollins College, and she worked for Valencia Community College. And part of what she also did, and actually it was the late 70s, early 80s, she was part of the Disabilities Act, being able to work with President Bush and being able to pass the Disabilities Act. So there were about 102 men and women that were all working on that. So her name is somewhere up there, on a plaque in up at the White House, which is super beautiful. She also, anytime my mother could help somebody with that inspiration of hope, that is exactly what she did. She believed in every single human being, and she believed that no matter what path anybody has taken, that we can always get back on that right path. She also was part of when I can't remember exactly what it was called for the expressway. She was part of a team that took to Tallahassee, the need for passes so that when they went through expressways, a lot of them couldn't, especially my mother, like her hands were on, she could drive, so her hands were on the hand controls and couldn't necessarily dig for change and put change in the toll booth. So she was part of helping to change that for a lot of people, where now they within 3 months they had passes on their rear view mirror. So as they drove through, they didn't have to put change in the tolls. So that was really neat. She also, my mother loved to travel, even though she was in a wheelchair. And I say, even though her wheelchair never, it didn't stop her from anything except walking. And I think I said that before. She learned to ride a horse. She learned to swim. She would travel. She would put us as young children in the van, and literally we would drive from here to Washington D.C., where her parents lived, and she would just drive all night and loved it. So she was always looking for an adventure, and she was always just full of love, even until her last breath. My mom passed away a year ago, and I was there with her when she passed away. And I'll tell you, it was probably the hardest thing in my life, but yet it was the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in my life, because my mother, 15 minutes before she passed away, she had said, it's your turn. The light is on you now. It's your turn. She said, I'll never be too far away from you. And then she closed her eyes, and she opened her eyes up again about 20 minutes later. And she said, it's time to let me go. She closed her eyes again. She fell asleep. She woke back up and she looked at me. And when she looked at me, you couldn't see her pupils now. All it was like white marbles. And she looked over at me and she said, I can see you. She said, I also see the light. I see the light. She said, the light is here for me. Please let me go. It's time. And she closed her eyes and she went. And it was so, it meant so much to me that she did it with me, that she allowed me to be the one to be there with her in order to do that. Thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, at the moment you started talking about your mom, your face just I couldn't help but notice it had this beautiful smile. You were beaming
Thank you.
talking about her.
Thank you. And I feel her with me all the time. She's in my dreams every night. We fly in my dreams almost every single night. And it's amazing. I feel her with me.
As a manual wheelchair user and a person who's, with polio and scoliosis, I definitely have benefited from her work, from her advocacy. Yeah, so thank you. Thank your mother. I'm thanking you through um in hopes of, passing that on,
Yeah,
passing that
thank you. Can
appreciation.
I ask you something?
Yeah.
How old were you when you got polio?
I don't remember just because I was adopted. I was abandoned as a toddler and then I lived in an orphanage for 7 years. So a lot of my past I just don't know. Um,
Wow. And where were you living?
China.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, of course, of course. But I
You
want
know,
go ahead.
I want to share one more thing, because I think that, we every single one of us has hard times, right? Every single one of us has struggles. Every single one of us, and it doesn't, when I say every single one of us, it doesn't take away from anybody's pain or anybody's, feelings. Um, in knowing that every single one of us has different struggles, as the years go by, the different generations, it's interesting to see what those struggles look like. And it's like today, modern technology, you and I are able to have this beautiful conversation over Zoom, and we'll be able to share it out on social media. Um, Back when my mother got polio when she was 8 years old, polio was like COVID. They didn't know, they just knew that people were catching it in the middle of the afternoon when it was the hottest. They didn't really know, how it was being spread. So there were a lot of people that were wearing masks like they were during COVID. And my grandmother shared with me when my grandmother lived to be 101, and she still played cards and still was able to get around and still could see, and we played cards a lot together. And usually when we played cards, we would pause and we would start sharing stories. I would listen to her stories. And I asked her one day, I said, we called her Noonie. And I said, Noonie, I said, what was the hardest thing being a mom? The biggest struggle. She had 6 children. My mom was the oldest. And she was a nurse also. And she said it was the day that your mom came home from the hospital. My mom was in a hospital in New York for a year and a half. So from 8 years old to 9 and a half. And it was a studying hospital in New York for polio. And she said it was the day that your mom came home and she had to learn how to walk on the crutches. And as she was learning to walk on the wooden crutches with braces all the way up, tied with string around the top part of her thigh or thighs, it was as she was trying to learn how to use them, and she would fall. And she wanted to run over and she wanted to help console her. She wanted to go over and she wanted to hug her and tell her it's all okay and love on her. And the doctor that was there said, absolutely not. He said, that will be the biggest disservice that you ever give her. Let her figure out how to get up so that because she's going to fall, she's going to stumble, not just here, but different places in her life. And she's going to have to figure out how to make her way back up. And so growing up, when we would go, there's 3 of us. I'm a middle child. I've 4 of us. I've got a older half sister. She didn't live with us, but I'm super close to her. And but there were 3 of us in the house, and when we thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this, or how in the world am I gonna, conquer whatever it was? Mom would look down at her legs, and she'd look back up with a smile, and immediately we were like, okay, we're gonna go figure it out. Because really what mom's message was is the only thing that's not possible for me is that I can't walk. Anything else is possible. Let's go out and find the solution. So I want to say thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for allowing other people to be able to share bits of their story and with, with, with you and with the world. You're an inspiration.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. And I think with your mom, with that tough love that was recommended to your grandma, it cultivated so much strength in her, it sounds like.
Absolutely. When I started One Heart, my mom was still driving, and my mother would drive to One Heart almost every day. And she would pull up, she would honk her horn, and we would bring food bags out to her. And she always knew exactly who needed food that day. And so we would pack the food bags into her van, and then she would drive away. And she had flowers. She had eggs and milk and pantry bags along with meat, and it was enough food. And this is what we do at One Heart. It's enough food for full meals, and it's enough food for 3 to 4 days for either an individual or a family, no matter how big the family is. And it doesn't matter if somebody is housed or unhoused. So as we were talking earlier, that 20,000 people, we help over 20,000 people each month with food. It seems like a big number, and it is. And we don't do it alone. So we do have volunteers that come to One Heart. They pick up the food and they take it out into the community. We do have a box truck, and the box truck will put pallets of boxes of food in the box truck, and we would take it out into apartment complexes and hotels, especially after COVID. Before COVID, we were helping about 3,000 people each month. And it was before COVID is when my mother was volunteering. My mother ended up in in a rehab and in assisted living right at the beginning of COVID and never came back out. So we'll talk a little bit about One Heart now, which I love, is that not only was my mom a big part of the beginning of One Heart for Women and Children, but my mother also brought a lot of other people with different disabilities to One Heart. We had a gentleman that needed to do some volunteer hours, and he got in a car accident. He was drinking and driving, got in a car accident, and instead of him going to prison, they gave him a lot of community service hours. He had like 5,000 hours to do, and he couldn't find any place to do the hours. And he ended up doing his hours at One Heart, and it took him about 9 years. But what he did is he's got a program that he literally talks into the program, and it puts all the information onto the computer. So he helped us with a lot of our back end information at One Heart and helped us to start a few programs at One Heart. So what I love is that it doesn't matter how young or how old, age is not, it doesn't, that's not the deciding factor. If somebody wants to volunteer with us, and it doesn't matter if you can walk or not, it doesn't matter if you can see or not. We've got some people that hard of hearing that come in and volunteer with us. We have people that are blind that come in and volunteer with us. We have a 98-year-old that comes in 4 generations, and they come in and they volunteer with us once a month. And I love that we have opened it up and made an opportunity for anybody that wants to come in and serve the community and just love on each other as a big family. Like that's what we've done. That's what we've been able to cultivate, is that each and every person is welcome.
Wow. So you have quite the diversity of volunteers.
Absolutely. We have about 600 volunteers throughout the month, every single month, to make every moving piece happen. We're almost 100% volunteer based at One Heart also.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
So that says a lot about how compelling the mission is, right? The great work, the great service.
absolutely. From people picking up food from different stores and different, we have some teams that are making hot meals, and then we take it out into a certain place in the community, all the way down to picking up 40,000 pounds of food and dropping it off for us to be able to do a big, we call it a mobile food distribution. And that is where people just literally drive through, and we help over 1,200 people during a 3.5 hour short time, to be able to get food during that short time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. So I want to pivot to coaching a little bit. I know you mentioned it briefly in the beginning, life coaching, and that's something that you do.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, what are the skill sets one must have to coach? I know you coach people in transition homes and shelters. So how is that different from um, coaching other niche groups? Yeah, what are the particular skill sets that one must have?
For the specifically for the women that are in the shelters and the men that are in the shelters and
Mhm.
treatment. Okay, so I have 3 certifications in life coaching. I thought that it was going to be really important that I was a certified life coach in family coaching as well, and that is one of them that a lot of times people, especially even if they don't have children, it's what I hear often is. I don't have any children, so why do I need to learn that about parenting? And part of it is learning more about ourselves so that if we do become a parent, we have those skills. But one of the others is majority of the women and men that I life coach in the treatment centers and in the halfway houses are most of them did not have a solid, and I say solid childhood. A lot of them didn't learn the life skills. They didn't have parents that taught them some of just the basics. Um, so in that, one of the things that we do really, really quickly as we start asking questions about how people are feeling about a particular, event or day, what we do is quickly connect the head and the heart so that we can start healing that super, super quickly. And um, I think that having the experience, strength, and hope from having addiction for over 17 years, I think that that is definitely a benefit because I too can. I understand where they're coming from. So having the prior addiction and now having 25 years of recovery and having the life coaching skills, I think that I can come in fully well rounded and grounded to be able to come in and say, how can we do this together? Versus me coming in just book smart and coming, not to say that that can't happen, because it definitely does. Although I think that it's an added benefit being able to know where they're coming from with a lot of the pain and why we started using drugs.
So powerful. Speaking of the importance of life experiences, right?
Mhm.
I know another incredible thing about you is that you're a seven-time, is that right? Seven-time cancer survivor.
Yep.
I When I read that, I was like, am I reading this right? Is this a typo?
Mm-mm.
Um, what do you think being a seven-time cancer survivor has taught you? I can't even imagine once, but seven times. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, my first time was probably the worst. It was from a tubular pregnancy, and I was 18 months clean and sober. I had just gotten my kids back, and I got pregnant. I was in a relationship, and I got pregnant, and I had a tubular pregnancy, and that's where choriocarcinoma came from. And I had to give my children to some friends. I got to pick where my children went this time, and they were with him for almost 9 months. And now my parents took care of me while I was going through my first bout of cancer. Now I will say that 9 months after, and I don't remember a whole lot of that time. Heavy medications and chemo. I was 10 days on for chemo and 5 days off for almost 9 months. And then we thought the cancer was gone. And 6 months later, when I went back to do all my checks, the cancer was back and it was in my blood, only in the blood. So there were no tumors anywhere else, but it was in the blood. And they quickly, for the next 6 months, same thing, had to give my children to some friends again and went through 6 more months of intense chemo. And the women in the treatment centers, both the first and second time, really rallied around me, and they would come to my home and they would bring meetings to me and a whole lot of love and hot meals. And people came and cleaned my parents' home. And I had women that literally came over and like they would just put me in the bathtub and they would bathe me because my parents couldn't do that, mom being in the wheelchair, and my dad wasn't comfortable with that. And I understand that. So the women would come over and just take care of every single one of my needs. And I'll tell you, that brought me closer to a lot of women. Somebody to come over and do things like that. It takes a special woman to be able to do that, or a special human being to literally be that vulnerable to be able to do that. So now, fast forward, I ended up with desmoid tumors. So the desmoid tumors came from I had my esophagus taken out when I was 40 years old. So I got clean and sober at 32, 40 years old, had had a lot of problems with my upper GI, and my esophagus had stopped working. And part of why my esophagus, that upper sphincter muscle, stopped working was from all the trauma, from the chemo, from the drugs and alcohol, from the stressors in my life. And so they took it out. So they cut belly to chest, and they ended up having to cut belly to chest 3 different times. And from that, all the scar tissue, there's tumors that can grow. And so I've had 5 sets of those tumors, and they're called desmoid tumors. So some of them have been benign, some of them have been cancer. So right now I've got 5 more, and none of them are cancer, which is amazing, but they're treating them all along that same way with injecting straight into the site, injecting chemo right into the site, which is absolutely amazing. My community, having a community around me and knowing whether it's not being able to be at One Heart because I'm not feeling well or because I have treatment that day, all the way to when my children were younger, people jumping in to be able to help with whatever that need was. And I'll tell you that I don't think, um, I don't, I want to say that I really believe that every single bit of it is because when I got clean and sober and I found that community that we're all living clean and sober as well, when I didn't have an answer for something or I needed another resource, there was somebody always to say, "Oh, I've already been through that, and here's a resource." Or like I think we've got a plethora of resources, and a lot of times those resources aren't necessarily found on the internet. I think a lot of them are word of mouth. And hence that goes right back to One Heart for Women and Children is that we don't do a whole lot of marketing. We do share a whole lot of stories on social media, and it's all word of mouth. Whether it's a donor, whether it's a volunteer or somebody coming in that needs food. And I think having cancer that many times and having as many surgeries, I've had 17 surgeries and been put under anesthesia now 37 times for different procedures. Um, I believe that it has made me stronger. And I believe that every single time I start walking through another part of the medical journey, I believe that not only it makes me stronger as a woman, but it also allows me to reach into the community or into my family. One of the things that I did learn is that we're never alone. If we are alone, we choose to be alone, or we don't know how to ask for help yet. Or we think that, and I say we, a lot, what I hear often is, um, I don't need anybody's help, or I've got this on my own, or I don't want to burden anybody. And I'll share that in this last 6 weeks for me, so something totally different than the cancer. I broke my back 6 weeks ago. And I think that this for me has been so in between it. So I'm going through treatments for the desmoid tumors and also broke my back. So I had surgery. And um, through it, being able to say, absolutely, if somebody says, "Can I bring you dinner?" Or if somebody stops by and says, here's flowers. Well, my cats eat flowers. So I don't say, no, thank you, my cats eat flowers. I say thank you very much, and I find a creative place to put them, like my bathroom, or some place where my cats aren't going to eat them. And I think that it's people genuinely want to help. They want to be there. And as a recipient of it, or being the patient, or being the friend that's going through a challenging time, I believe that one of the biggest gifts has been able to say just thank you, or I need some help, or can you do this? And with that, it strengthens relationships, and it also allows other people to really jump in and be able to help. And I remember the very first time when I was going through cancer the first time, and somebody asked if they could bring dinner over. And I had said no. And she said, "If I was going through what you're going through and you asked to bring dinner over and I said no, how would you feel?" And like that hit me to the bitter core. And what a great lesson. It was like, why would I take something from you I say you, whoever that person is, why would I take that away from you if it's something that you want to do? And that's something that we teach a lot at One Heart also, is that if somebody offers to do something, they offer to do something or they offer to help with something because they genuinely want to, not because they feel obligated to. Which also goes back to um, why I started One Heart and why I am a life coach and why I do teach parenting and life skills and other things in the women's shelter. And it's because I've I've got the life experience, and it's because I've lived through that experience, strength, and hope. And I believe that every single part of the journey, every part of the journey, the pains, the dreams, the highs, the lows, I believe all of it was so that I can live out my full passion and my purpose. And I believe that that is what I'm doing today at 58 years old. And I believe that the more we get in and we share those stories with each other and share the experience with each other and share how we walked through those challenges together, I believe that that's really why we walk through the things that we walk through.
It seems like life has taught you so much humility and so much connectedness, you know?
I love the word because it's really when I wake up in the morning, when I go walk in the mornings, one of the things that I do is say, let me serve the community, or let me serve people the way that you want me to. And I say that I've got, through my personal relationship with who I call God, it's like, I want to walk in with pure humility, and I also want to walk in with just pure love with no judgment, which also goes back to you had asked a question earlier about the life coaching. And I believe that one of the beautiful parts that I have to offer to the women that are in the treatment center and the halfway houses is that I come in with no judgment because I've been there. I when we start talking about how can I help you to be able, I say you, the women that are there, how can I help you to overcome the pain and the hurts from the traumas in your life? How can we get in and heal that pretty quickly so that you don't have to carry it forward? So, how can we get in? It's like first building that relationship. They all volunteer at One Heart as well. So, we've got an amazing relationship. So, as we go in and I pour into them in their where they're living, they come in and they pour into the community at One Heart for Women and Children. Just another added benefit is what that is. Um, but really being able to teach them, to live to their fullest potential at that moment and help to as they are healing the hurts and healing from the pains and finding out that there's more commonalities in all of their other I call them sisters as we're living in a treatment center. It becomes their family, right, for that short time. And it's like, how can we get in and we can really relate to each other with no judgment, and how can we get in and find the commonalities in life? And it's the same thing when we walk into the shelters. I was in 8 different shelters prior to being homeless, and um, I always felt like I was different and I felt like I was judged. And what I know today, why I felt different is because I went in and said, I'm not like you, I'm not like you, I'm not like you. And then as I went in that very last time into treatment, what I found is that there's so many common denominators. We're all here for the same common purpose. And I believe that in life, like we're all here just trying to figure this thing called life out. And what a beautiful thing when we invite people in or people come in to say, how can I help you? Whatever that looks like, how can I help you? How can I help teach you how to drive? Or how can I help your child go ride a bicycle? How can I help somebody heal from the trauma of being raped? How can I get in and help? And I say we as as a community, wherever that community is, um, which goes right back hand in hand to what our mission at One Heart is. And our mission is ending hunger, building community, and empowering hope. And I believe that when we do that, like thinking of everybody in the world, when we are doing that, just reaching our hand out and just asking one person, how can I help? How can I help you today? How can I love you a little bit more today? Um, I believe that it's really beautiful. And I believe that there's more good in the world than not. I believe that there's a lot more love in the world than not. Do I think that we can ever end hunger? Probably not. Although, what we can do is we can help one more person today to be able to not go hungry. We can help one more person not have to go into a dumpster for food. We can help one more person today to be able to have that gift of hope. And I believe that that is what we're here for, is to be able to give just that little glimmer of hope to somebody that feels like there's no hope, or feel like they're really in a dark, dark time, to say, hey, we're here with you. We're here with you. How can we help?
Yeah, the more I talk to you, the longer this interview goes on, the more I see why you're such an incredible lady and why why you should be a life coach and be empowering women and people in those shelters and all of us, me included. You do have such an important message in terms of, yeah, you're not going to be able to end hunger like you said, right? But being able to just um, do what we can and shine that light as far as we can. It does make a difference.
Shine the light wherever we can, because we're all full of light. We can be full of darkness too, but we've got more light in us than darkness. And when we can just be the light wherever that is. And I believe that that's what you're doing too. You're shining a light for a lot of people. And I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity. I also want to say thank you for being so patient with me. It goes back to 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, when I broke my back. I went to Guatemala to build stoves to help a community in Guatemala with some friends. And in our last day that we were there, I jumped off a platform that was 55 feet high
Oh,
into
wow.
water. And I did it willingly. And I was the first one out of about 10 of us. And they say about 1 out of every 25,000 people get injured. And I didn't think that I'd be that one. I broke my back. I did not know that my back was broke. I knew that I injured myself, but I did not think that I broke my back. Like that would, I knew I busted up, maybe bruised some ribs and hurt part of my back, but nowhere in there. I didn't go to the doctors there. I got to the doctors. We got back to the States the next day. And our community, the 17 other people that were with me, helped me to get back to the States. And it was brutal. It was painful. And I'll share with you, while I was on the bus or the boat getting, back to where we needed to get, and then 3.5 hours on the plane with a broken back. I just kept saying, Mom, please take the pain away. Noonie, just take the pain away. Dad, just help lighten the pain a little bit. And I don't remember a whole lot of that full 16 hours getting home from Guatemala. But what I do remember is each time I said a prayer, it was like it was a little bit less of pain. And it helped me to get into that state of gratitude, which is also something that I love. I love gratitude. I love to be, thankful for things. And so there was a whole lot of, thank you for this trip, and thank you for my friends, and thank you for my mom, and thank you for my dad. And um, with that, when I got back here to the States, I went to the emergency room and quickly found that I broke my back. And I had some broken ribs as well. And again, going right back to the community just rallying around saying, how can I help? And all the way from them not having to do a full surgery, literally cutting my spine from right underneath my neck all the way down to the bottom of my spine. They were able to go in laparoscopically with a robot. There was a doctor that specialized in this, and it's only 18 months. I say old, young. So if this would have happened to me 19 months ago, they would have had to cut me wide open. And I think that there's no accidents. Um, I believe there's been so many blessings through this part of the journey as well. And one of them is my team at One Heart, literally not only stepping up, but literally stepping into that next part of what One Heart for Women and Children really is. And they've been able to do it without me. Like they did it because they've been they had some great teachers, and ultimately, isn't that what our job is as a leader, is being able to teach the ones around us how to be their best, to reach their purpose, to live in their passion and their purpose. And I know those are some kind of buzzwords that a lot of people say, but what I love is that when we know that we're here for a purpose and a reason, sometimes it's a season and sometimes it's not. But it also, when we step back as leaders, whatever the reason is, when we step back, what we get to do is we get to watch the ones that we've been teaching. We have the opportunity to watch them shine and watch them be their best. And ultimately, I think that's what this blessing for this last 6 weeks has really been about. It's like the day that I was in surgery, my team literally, it was a day off, and my team was rallied around for 6 hours, talking about, how are they going to step into that next part and really, take different roles of mine on while I'm not there, while they're still doing their job, and some of them have second jobs as well. Some of them have children. Some of them, have other outside things that they did. But what I love is that the team just really just rallied around and did the absolute best that they could, and it was amazing. And they still are, because I'm still not back at work.
I can't believe you're sitting here and talking to me so eloquently after now that I know how much pain and how severe that injury was for you.
I want to again thank you for the patience through that. And I also want to say it really takes a special person, um, like you, to be able to be as patient, with cancellations and with. I think that that's the other part, being able to. Hmm, I make plans, and one of the things that I do is, if I have to cancel them or postpone them, I just hope and pray, that the people that I make the plans with, um, are okay if the plans don't go as planned. And somebody asked me, they said, "Why do you do that? Why don't you just, not make any plans for the next, 8 to 10 weeks?" And sure, I could have done that. I could have done that. But I think also letting the people around know, what I'm going through, because there's times where I'm the one where somebody, has to cancel on, or has to postpone something a couple times because they're walking through something. And I think that, all the way around, we're all human, right? And when we find that more of those commonalities again, and we know that, we are all here to be able to help each other. And I want to say thank you for helping me.
Of course, I think it's a gift really to me and the listeners who will be listening to this interview. Really. And like I said, I can't believe you're so eloquent right now. So one last question, which maybe you've already kind of touched upon it. What is your uh, ultimate dream with One Heart? And
Mm.
then how can people help you achieve it and follow that journey?
I love that question. 2.5 years ago, we had somebody that bought some property for us, and we've been raising funds for it. And we are so close to our $1 million capital campaign. And we have new property. So we've been renting warehouses. It's a big, big warehouse, and it definitely was not built for us. It does not have air conditioning in there. It does in two offices and where our food is stored, but everywhere else, the other 8,000 square feet, there's no air conditioning, and we help a lot of people, and we have a lot of people at One Heart that are all working, and even when it's 100 degrees outside, and they do it because they know what their part of their purpose is, and because they want to be a part of a bigger community. Now, with that being said, we have not started building yet. We're still raising funds. 100% of it will be air conditioned. It's also going to triple the space that we have. So we will be able to not only serve more people, but we also will have some other programs. So we'll be able to do our life coaching right in our new facility. We'll be able to have team building events right in our new facility. We'll be able to have some of the moms come in and let them do some of the trainings and some nutritional classes. And we'll have computers in there where some of the children can come over and they can do their homework on computers in a safe place. And that's going to happen in less than a year. Literally less than a year from now, we will be in our new building. And I want to say that every $1 helps us to get to that goal. A lot of times people think of that, a big number when especially when somebody's raising funds. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Again, $1, $10 will help one person with enough food for a whole week. And when we think about that, it's like nonprofits like us can do that. If somebody just goes and shops at the grocery store, they can't necessarily do that. But because we have great partners where we get some things free and other things we pay like 9 cents and 19 cents a pound for food, we're able to stretch those dollars a lot farther. And again, we're almost 100% volunteer based. So how can people help? People can help if they're right here in Orlando or Central Florida by volunteering or by donating any of their items, whether it's furniture, household goods. One of the things I didn't talk about that we do for every hour that somebody comes in and volunteers, which a lot of our women that are in the shelters, they come in and they volunteer with us. They're earning $15 an hour in vouchers. So they're not earning dollars, but they're earning life skills, and they're earning community service hours, and they're earning $15 an hour in vouchers. So when they graduate the program, they can come in and they can shop for whatever they need for their new place. And then we put it in our box truck and we take it over to their new place and help them set it up. And so in the morning they wake up in the shelter, and by the time they go to bed, they've got their own new little home or big home. And another way to help is be able to share the word, share what we do at One Heart, share our website. When we have events or little asks, like this morning, there were some asks for, we've got some moms that needed diapers and some formula. Just be able to, again, every $1 helps the cause. We do have something that's called a Heartbeat sponsor. And with that Heartbeat sponsor, it's 1 year being able to make a monthly donation, whether it's $10, $50, 100, whatever that dollar amount is. We challenge people to be able to not buy coffee for 2 days and donate that money once a month, or bring their lunch every Friday and donate that money, not to One Heart or to a nonprofit. Most nonprofit organizations really are month to month and don't have a lot of, we have no federal grants. And all of our donations come in from smaller grants and from our community and fundraisers.
In terms of the website, what is that website? Do you want to say it for people?
Absolutely. The website is www.oneheartforwomen, womenandchildren.org. And it's all spelled out. So there's no numbers in there. So www.oneheartforwomenandchildren.org. And then our Instagram is One Heart Matters. And Facebook is One Heart for Women and Children. Or if you just put One Heart in, when you see it looks like a heart with 5 puzzle pieces. That's us.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you for the work that you do. You have one tough body too. As I was listening to you, I'm like your body tempo is very tough. It's gone through a lot.
What I love, and this is what the doctor last week said. He said it's a good thing that you've really no. He said your healing, the healing process, it really shows that you take good care of your body. I juice. I juice for our team a couple times a week. So our team is they always have fresh pressed juice, and some of us do yoga together. Well, actually, I'm not doing it now because I can't. Although there's a lot of things that we do so that mind, body, spirit, we stay connected and we stay connected with each other. So I believe that I got the toughness of my body through my mom. My mother had her manual wheelchair until she was 56 and then went to an electric wheelchair. And I believe that a lot of the strength that I've received and that I have is truly from my family. I'm going to send you some of the pictures that I just found. My mom was in a wheelchair where the wheels, it was a wooden wheelchair, and the wheels were 3 times bigger than what the wheels are today.
Wow.
And my mother looked teeny, teeny, teeny tiny in this wheelchair. But the biggest smile, my mother always had a smile on her face. I don't remember my mom not having a smile on her face no matter what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna send you some of those pictures of her and her graduation from high school and her graduation from college. Just super beautiful. But I'm gonna send you a couple pictures.
And you're continuing that smile and spreading that smile. It seems like through your service and also just through your presence, whoever is getting to speak to you.
I believe that we all have something to teach each other here on this earth, and I believe that we all have something to learn from each other. And when we're open to that, I think that's the beautiful thing. And that's one of the things my mother talked about often. You know, she came in, she said she hopes that she remains to be the student more than the teacher.
What a wonderful start to the week. You know, they say Sunday is the start of a new week, and I'm so glad I got to talk to you to kick off my week. And thank you for giving me your peaceful, calm morning to do this interview as well. I appreciate you.
Thank you for reaching out. And it's been amazing getting to know you a little bit. And I look forward to many more conversations with you.
Yeah, I hope to have more conversations as well. And yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. I look forward to the pictures you're about to send me.
Thank you. I'm going to send them in just a few minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of your day.
You too. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.